Hello everybody, and thank you for joining us today for our aquaculture webinar. So one of our recruitment managers, Athena, will be speaking with some of our current students, and they'll be able to tell you a lot more about their experience on the course and of what life is like at Stirling. So just to give you a bit more information about the format of the webinar, all of your microphones and videos have been disabled, so you'll just need to interact with us via the chat function or the Q&A section. And so if you do have any questions for our students, if you just write that in the Q&A section, or if you see someone else's question that you think is particularly relevant or you'd like to be answered more imminently, then you can upvote their question and that will jump to the top of the queue to be answered. So with that said, I'll pass over to Athena and our students, and they can get started with the webinar.
So hello everyone, and thank you for joining today's session. My name is Athena and I'm the marketing officer for the Faculty of Natural Sciences, in which the Institute of Aquaculture belongs. I have here today with me Sophie, Brian and Tara, who are currently studying sustainable aquaculture in the Institute, and they will be sharing their experience with you about life at the University of Stirling, life as a student, and generally their experience with the course and their field trips. So just to kick start this session, I'll ask a few questions to them, and we'll be waiting your questions typed in the Q&A. Once we see them coming, we'll stop our conversation and then start answering your questions. So just to kick start this, if any of you wanted just to let us know why you chose Stirling to do particularly aquaculture with us, that would be great.
Yeah, okay, I can start. I don't know if everyone wants to go, but so I'm from the United States, from California. So I kind of just found an interest in aquaculture through my time after undergraduate. I did a master's in marine biology, took some years off and worked in the seafood industry for a little while, and then kind of found aquaculture, wanted to go back to school. I actually met somebody who did the program here, who also is from the United States, from the same area as I am, and he highly recommended the program. And through kind of my searches for other aquaculture related programs in the States, Stirling has a great reputation globally. A lot of people in the United States know about the program, and it's also year long, which was enticing to me because a lot of programs in the States are more than that. And actually ends up being cheaper for me as a student as well, even internationally, not in the EU, to be here than it is to be in state in the US. Yeah.
What about you, Brian?
So basically, I'm from Tunisia, and my background is not from marine biology or aquaculture. I had my bachelor degree is finance, but because I had a family business, which is shrimp farm, and I'm frequently attached to the business, and I get interested with the business itself and how it runs. I feel like there's need more knowledge, and because we're lacking in understanding basic knowledge, and I think that it'd be good if I can know more and help the business itself. So, and I've been looking at basically I start with the website, and then just looking at generally like aquaculture master's degree all around the world, and I've been asking people and comparing it with degrees in Australia and the United States. But the United States, I think there's not much that focuses on aquaculture. So, and I figured that reputation-wise, still University of Stirling is one of the best in the UK. So I decided to go here.
And what about you, Sophie?
Okay, my name is Falabi. I'm from Nigeria, and I have had aquaculture background in Nigeria, and actually had two Stirling alumni on the staff in my university back home, and they recommended the university so well. I have the long-term career plan to do a PhD, and then sometimes go back to the industry, then for a while, go back to teaching. So, and I've always been told that University of Stirling is just the best place for me to do that and just kick off my career. Especially, having that name, University of Institute of Aquaculture, University of Stirling on your CV, applying for PhDs, anything, just opens the door and things like that. So that's why I chose the University of Stirling. Really.
Mm-hmm. And what has been your experience so far with the lecturers and the academics in the institute?
I mean, it's been very engaging, I think, in general. Of course, the program, I mean, if most people probably know this listening, but is set into like 4-week modules, and each module has 2-week topics. So there's 2 topics within each module. So each topic you're getting kind of a new set of lectures, like a main lecture with some additional lectures or guest lectures or field trips within those 2 weeks. So you're kind of always changing topics, which is really nice. Coming from the US, and I think most undergrads, you're in kind of for the long haul and you have multiple classes for the whole semester. And so with this way, every 2 weeks, if you really dislike something, it's only 2 weeks long. And if you really like it, then there's opportunities to kind of keep engaged in that topic somehow, or at least you get to meet people in the industry or kind of connect with the professors at the university or at the institute who are involved in that topic. So, I mean, in general, I don't know if that answers the whole question, but I think the program is very engaging and you get the opportunity to cover such a wide range of topics. It really helps if you don't have a specific interest that you know of yet in aquaculture.
And how much of your time do you spend a week, for example, in labs or lectures or tutorials? So how much of your time is required to be on campus?
Well, if you want to talk about how much of your time you require, for the course or something, but let me just divide it into 2.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is, the formal time, which you have to spend between 9:30 to, I think, 12. Then you have 2 hours break.
Mm-hmm.
Then from 2, then you end by 5. That kind of happens most of the day. But sometimes you can have, some free days, sometime for reading, preparing for PowerPoint slides, presentations and things like that. Your assignments that, it's just every module is just different. So you have, different, but formally you just have to prepare your mind that you have to, spend your time, from 9:30 to 5 every day.
Mm-hmm.
But so it changes, and then you have the quality time for your break, to do whatever you want to do. So then every other time is for yourself, doing everything you think you need to do, preparing yourself. Probably, there's something that you were taught in class, you just don't understand. You have to meet somebody, spend hours digging in the library and things like that. So that's how. So
and mostly the lectures are recorded. So if you don't understand anything, you can just listen again.
Okay. Do you get any days off, or do you have all 5 days to be here to attend teaching?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's different for every course,
okay.
for every module,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes don't have the 5 days, entirely, for lectures. Sometimes you have 1 or 2 days off, in the
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks for each module,
Mm-hmm.
each course. You have 1 or 2 days off to prepare for maybe the next class, or it's just very different and it's very dynamic. So you just have to approach it with the timetable. And so.
The reason I'm asking is just to explain this a little bit more, because usually a postgraduate degree, you have the first semester, you have the 4 modules, for example, you need to attend, and you have the set lectures, and then you do the tutorials, and then you get the time off. But because you're doing this to the block modules, the 2 weeks, and then you have the break, and then you do the other 2, just to give our listeners a bit more understanding of how it works. You mentioned assignment earlier. So how does it work? How are you examined for your work? Do you have tests? Do you have exams? Do you have teamwork assignments or individual?
All of the above. Again.
Let me just talk about one of the things I really loved about the course is just that for me, there are no exams, so to say, and for the sustainable aquaculture, part, there are no exams, and you just have the assignment you turn in after 2 weeks for each of the block of modules. So, and that was very fantastic for me, and that's one thing about the grading. But other part of the grading, sometimes you have, presentation group work to do together, which is sometimes graded, sometimes not. But the bulk of the grade, goes to the assignment you turn in after the each block of the modules every 2 weeks.
Yeah, and again, it depends on the module. Sometimes we had a lot of assignments to turn in over the 2 weeks, and that made it so that each assignment was worth less in your overall grade. But then you have more work to do over the whole time, or sometimes it's all comes down to one report or lab report or some sort of project, or like you said, group work, presentations, individual or group presentations. So it just depends. I mean, every 2 weeks is something different, basically.
So you don't get bored, I guess.
No time to get bored. No.
No, definitely not.
I think from the whole module, we only got 2 exams. The first one in the foundation modules, genetics, and the last one, if you take health and epidemiology, you have ecotoxicology test.
Okay.
Yeah, so there are a couple in-class tests, but it's not.
It's not the exams.
Yep.
Not the exam,
Not
and
like
the
exams,
whole grade for the module is not based on that test. So
Mhm.
it's just a fraction of the module. So the grade that is based
Maybe
on
25%.
25% thereabout. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I think that's very useful information, just so people can plan ahead or just understand how it works, and it's not your standard first semester, second semester, and then the dissertation, which I think you're all working on that at the moment. Could you just talk to me about a little bit of how you're prepared and how do you get to start the dissertation in June, I think?
Okay. The dissertation starts officially April. Is it April? Yeah, I think I'm
16.
correct. April. So around April. But for the dissertation, you basically have to have an area you're interested in, and you are not really bossed around. You just, based on what you want. And for me, I'd already had a premeditated, area I wanted, but for most other students, they had to listen to, after going through all the foundation module or the advanced module, they were able to choose, their interest and look and say, okay, I think this is where I want to be in my career and things like that. And based on that, there were, I think, up to 70 projects that were listed. And so based on that, you can choose any project you want.
So if you don't know what to do, you are given an option.
If you don't know what to do, you are given an option. So, but then you have this other option whereby you can write up your proposal and approach a supervisor, even based on the area you want, which is what I did. I wrote a proposal and I approached my supervisor, and then everything. So, but if you want to do that, if I did that, I'd approach my supervisor early enough, since December, I think, and we had already started working things out, and and that's what I'm doing right now.
Do you feel well prepared to start the dissertation in the end? Because that's something that most of the applicants or students are worried about at the end of how the dissertation is. And
I think, in my opinion, the first day, the first period I started the dissertation, I felt like not confident because with all your thoughts and what I'm gonna do in the lab, never actually done anything, and then my background, like
from finance,
from
it's a bit different.
I think once you go through it and just don't overthink, you will get the preparation ready, and make sure that you do a lot of reading before, and make sure that have good basic understanding about your topic, and I think it'll be fine. So
Yeah, I think it is kind of what you make it with the dissertation stuff. Like once you're kind of get the ball rolling and you have, people are there, your advisor or the lab technicians are there to kind of train you in the things that you're supposed to be doing. So you get the trainings that you need, and they're there for questions as well. So if you're engaged and you're trying to figure out, what you need to be doing to make your dissertation, like the whole district, I think the whole program is what you make it. You can be very engaged, and you'll get that engagement back, or you don't have to be. yeah, I mean, I think the same goes for the dissertation and lab work and everything that we're into now is you're not being told what to do, but if you show up and
I
you
agree.
are making it the best, I mean, you have to do a certain level of work, but if you really want to get the most out of it, then you can. You just have to put a lot into it.
So it's basically up to you to manage your time,
For
to
this
put the
semester,
effort,
for this now,
and so you're treated as adults.
Yeah.
The difference is from the
Yeah.
undergraduate is
Yeah.
you're expected to do your work
Absolutely.
on your own. There's a question from Sylvia about the traineeship. I'm not sure I understand what you want to ask about that. What about the traineeship? If you could clarify that would be great, and then we'll try to answer. But in the meantime, I would like to ask you about the field trips. I know you take some field trips and you go to specific locations to get to know a bit more about aquaculture and the facilities with us. And I think you come in contact with industry partners as well. Could you give us some examples of what you've done and what did you feel? What did you learn from those trips?
Yeah, I mean, in November, the whole class went on a week-long, they call it a study tour. You go around Scotland, and we visited different farms and aquaculture facilities. So anywhere from like smolt and freshwater production to we saw an oyster farm and seawater cages and freshwater cages in the locks. So that was really cool. I mean, it's a week long. We all had buses and kind of caravanned around Scotland and stayed in some great hotels. And it was a good time. I think aside from seeing the industry in Scotland, also just to bond with each other in a way, because you don't really have time. You do, but not that formally. You're so busy in the first semester that it was really, I mean, I thought it was an awesome time.
Yeah,
It's definitely a highlight of the program.
It was a really awesome time.
Yeah.
And that was an opportunity to see Scotland.
Yeah. You get a great taste of how green Scotland is.
Yeah. And we also have done some other, depending on what courses you take then in your advanced modules. I think all of us were in the same ones basically, but you take, like we visited some more like industrial, like we went to a net factory. And,
servicing company.
And Aqua, it was Aqua that does like the feed.
Yeah. No, Aqua was the ones that make the cage equipment. And
Fusion
just
Marine
all around. I think that was engineering module. That was very good. I think the basic thing about the program is that you just don't sit in class and hear all the talks and everything. Some people have never been to marine cages, and things like that. I mean, it just came alive. You've been talking about cages, nets, and salmon, pars, smolt, and things like that. But then at the end of the day, you just
you're going to see actually
you get to see the experiment see it live, and you see a farm, you ask questions from practical questions from farmers, that have been in the business for a long time, not the executive, but the farmers on the field themselves. So that really gives you the experience, a better experience, a better feel. And then you get to write a report, which is, just what you've seen. And, it's so great.
So I take it that you take with you during the course and these trips lots of skills and knowledge that you can use in the future?
Yeah, I think that, and also just connections and
What skills, for example, what do you think you've learned that you are going to use in the future?
Well, is it from the field trip?
The field trip, the course, the modules you've done so far. What do you think you've learned from that?
I think it depends on individual, really, because it depends on the area of interest. Some people just like ecotoxicology, and I don't know why. I don't like it. So, I mean, I'm just going to be tuned off during, for example, epidemiology module. Though I kind of understand the whole process of the fact that you need fish beds and, you need to, what out biosecurity for diseases and things like that. As much as I understand those things, but I'm just not interested in those. I have, some take home from that, but the major take home will have been from where I'm really interested in, which would be probably genetics and nutrition.
So do you feel you are well prepared for that in that area?
Yes, I'm well prepared because at the end of the day, yes, you still need, like more training, on the field, it depends. For me, I'm going back to the farm. For some people, they're, going back, to maybe environmental side,
Business.
environmental business, just work with agencies and things like that. But for me, I think it prepares you to see, it's, for example, when I came for the course, I was a little bit myopic. I had an agricultural background, but coming here, opened my eyes to see the world better. You see oysters, you see different things, shellfishes, finfishes, and things like that. So you can really adapt to any scenario, and that's what you get from the master's course. Really.
Yeah, I agree.
Actually, I think, in my opinion, it also opens up like my view of aquaculture as general, because like before I came here, all I know was shrimp, and when we compare shrimp industry and the salmon industry is completely different, and how they do their businesses and how they implement technology in the salmon industry. It's crazy. And from Norway, Scotland, and they have the most high-tech technology there is in aquaculture, I think. And how you can not only you can implement, knowledge-wise, but you can actually find opportunities like, why is it my country doesn't have this? Why aren't we doing this? When you can look at different perspective and like find a business opportunity, or like think outside the box, and
try and apply that. Yeah,
trying to apply that.
Yeah,
that's great.
I think another just general thing that you get from this course that I've gotten, that I've found kind of surprising and rewarding in a way, is that you basically become it's like this intense 2 weeks every topic. It feels like you just put your head down and you oh my God, you're finding resources from everywhere, like books, online, papers. You've never researched one topic. I've never researched one topic so intensely for 2 weeks. And then the weekend comes and you're like, oh my God, what I just became an expert. I feel like I could be a professor for a week, in this topic. And so I think it's been really eye-opening to realize how much information is out there, or how to best kind of pull from your different resources that you're given here, and then also you kind of create your own, and learning to kind of ask questions in the right way and look for information in the right way. I think that's been one of the most surprising things I've learned from this, that I wasn't necessarily expecting to.
There's a question from Sylvia about the lecturers and the tutors, how easy it is to keep in touch with them and ask them help or for additional information with your courses or your dissertation now, or your assignment. So are they approachable? Is it easy to talk to them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think what I know is every lecturer's door, is always open. Especially when modules are going on, they always keep telling, if you have any question, just come and knock, and that's really helpful. But it depends on you as an individual to use the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
For example, sometimes because you might be shy, you might not want to go and meet the lecturer and things like that, but you have to. If you really, and one thing I know is this, I did that for some modules, and those were the modules I really did well.
Mm-hmm.
For example, in the engineering module, I had to go. I finished the assignment early enough, so I went to show the lecturer the coordinator, and then when I got there, and it was just okay, for what you've done, you're just gonna get this kind of grade and things. If you want more, you have to do this and do that. And at the end of the day, I came out excellent, And so, but one thing I know is that the lecturers, the coordinators, is usually open. The lecturers are usually open fast.
Yeah. I think so. In class or out of class as well, and willing to give you resources, and honestly help you connect with people if they don't know the answer to something. Or I think it's been they're always very available, very willing, and kind of, of course it varies from person to person. Some are busier than others at certain times, but the way that it's set up as well, you have to think these people have, in your 2 week module, the people that are lecturing or tutoring are only doing that for that 2 weeks. So they are kind of devoted to you as the students for those 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And then they can kind of move on to their other things later on. So I think that's one of the strengths of the way that the program here is set up, is that during that time, that kind of is their full-time job. And then they can do their research out. Mm-hmm. Whereas in other programs, they're kind of trying to balance students and their own research and grant money all year long. And so you're kind of always one of three. Whereas here it's, I think most of the time not that way.
There's a question. I'm not sure if you're able to answer that, but I'll try and ask it anyway. It's about getting an internship or employment in aquaculture after you finish your course. The question is about requirements. So I take it the requirements, depending on the country and the company you're applying with. We have a career service at the university that they come and give talks to our students. You can book appointments to talk to them, and they can give you advice of what to do with your degree and how to use that after your graduation. In terms of the aquaculture, because it's such a niche subject, usually our students, as to do. So usually they come here and they know what to do after graduation. But do you have any examples of, or do you know any of the current students who?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, if you want to work in Scotland, like I think the challenge for me is going back to the States. Not that I don't think I can get a job. It's like there's so many. When you're here, the university has, or the institute has, so many connections within Scotland. You visit all these farms, you meet all these people, and also with the rest of Europe. My experience in that way, it's like I would have kind of, I think, no problem really getting a job around here. And I don't think I'll have it's like, not that I'm struggling finding jobs in the US, it's just not having those actual direct connections. So then you're using kind of the name of the university to get yourself into those interviews.
I think it's pretty easy because a couple of the students haven't not finished the master's course already have a job.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can mention some of them. Yeah, some of them already have a job, and but it kind of depends on your interests. You know, it depends on where you want to work. If you want to work in Scotland, fine, it's good. If you want to work, and there's always this email that comes around for jobs, that email alerts for jobs, all around, and you get connected to that. So while the course is going, you keep on seeing those things, and then you build your career from there. But most importantly, there's this careers day that is being organized. I think it was organized for us, I think in April, and you have industry partners come around, and it's called Careers Day because, they know you need a job afterwards. So it's left for you to make use of those contacts at that particular point in time. So it depends on where you are from. But for me, coming from Africa, it might be depending on visa requirements and things like. So those are the issues you have to consider when it comes to such things. So for me, the Careers Day probably, there were a couple of companies that were thinking, okay, we'll check if the visa requirements, but it still depends, maybe not on the company, but on the visa, on the country itself. So it's a really dicey question. It depends on who you are, where you're from, and where you want.
Also, I think about internship, I think you can also be open through your dissertation itself, because many of the dissertation are working with a company. So you are working together with the company, and from that, you could do a good job from it. You know the people, you get engaged with the people, you get better opportunity to be hired from your dissertation. So
that's another route.
Yeah, another route.
Thank you. I think that's quite interesting to know that you have both the chances to do either with the lecture, your dissertation here, or to go into that for an industry partner. There's a question about aquaponics.
If we have any.
Yes, if you have any lessons or modules in aquaponics.
It's not like specific, so that's another thing. No, I think short answer is no. It's not like we have an official course in any aquaponics. I think that some of the things we learn, especially like we all did the engineering module, can kind of be applied because you're learning how to like kind of build an aqua something system, So the same principles apply. And then with your individual projects, like we had a student who did one of his presentations and projects for that module in an aquaponics system. So, realistically, you're getting a master's in aquaculture. So that's what on paper you have at the end. And that's and then you can kind of specify from there. I think, again, you could specify on your own in certain projects, but we're not formally being taught about any of the plants that you would grow or what species you would use or anything like that.
Yeah, I think that answers it sufficiently. There's no major course on aquaponics if that's what the person is asking for. But the word aquaponics keep on, coming up in lectures and lessons, but not just as a course.
And about accommodation, do you all stay on campus or do you stay in Stirling or Bridge of Allen?
I think we're all over, huh? I'm in university accommodation. I'm just off campus in a house called Allen Grange. So it is one of the postgraduate offerings that you can find online when you're applying for student housing. For me, it's been amazing. It's like a 5-minute walk to class in the morning. It is technically off campus, but it's like right on the other side of the wall. And the Pathfoot building where our classes are is right up against that back wall. So I can run home to make lunch when we have 2 hours off, or if I forget something, even on our 20-minute break between lectures, I can run home and grab something but yeah, it's, of course, it's not your own space. It's not the best, coming from, if you're living on your own, coming from that and moving back into student accommodation after I had so many years off was kind of a shock, but you get used to it, and the accommodation is nice and I have no complaints, and location is awesome for me. You guys
stay
in other places?
I'm also staying in a university accommodation, and I found it very good. I found it conducive, very nice. I'm staying in Lion Crescent. I purposely chose Lion Crescent. I could have chosen Allen Grange as well, but I chose Lion Crescent because I really wanted a little bit of distance from my accommodation to the uni, because I wanted to learn cycling. So it's more like a 15 minutes or to 20 minutes walk from the university, but then I can cycle 7 minutes, 5 minutes or 8 minutes every day to the uni. So it was an opportunity for me to just make sure I commit to that. So that's why I chose Lion Crescent. But for me, the accommodation is great for me, but it depends on who you are, what you want again. So if you want to live off campus, very far, there are students that do live off, even the city center. And if I had the opportunity, I would choose Lion Crescent again.
So would you think, what are the benefits of being on campus or off campus? What would you suggest? Do you suggest that it's better to stay on campus, to be closer to the buildings, or what, from your experience from the blog?
Personal preference.
I think the real reason why I chose the uni accommodation is because I didn't want to go through the hassles of looking for an accommodation. I'm already changing environment, experiencing, I want to see this house, that house. I already have a view of what I'm coming to, on the website. And it's just exactly what I found on the website, and that was just it for me.
Also, if you're not in the university accommodation, I think one of the procedure is you need your bank statement to show that you have sufficient money for the whole year. You need to pay for your electricity bill. You need to pay your own phone bill, and then I think it's much more complicated than university accommodation.
Yeah,
I think we're all biased toward. It's very easy. You set it up. I have loans, so it's I never have to worry about payments.
Yep.
So it's really easy. I would, like you said, I would choose Allen Grange again because I had my reasons for choosing it and they still work for me. But still, the people who live off campus, not even off campus, but not in student accommodation, I think really enjoy it as well. In a way, I think if you, for me coming from the US, it was so far that I didn't even want to have to deal with trying to find a place from 5,000 miles away to live, so student accommodation is nice, but if you can live off campus and not in university housing, realistically, it could be more affordable if you, not by much. It's still, compared to the United States, a lot cheaper to live here, even with the conversion rate monthly as in student accommodation. So it depends on what you want. The options are out there. There are a lot of flats in Stirling and Bridge of Allen, and a lot of buses that connect all through the city. So it's easy to get from town to Bridge of Allen to campus. And by bike, it's really cheap as well. Really accessible as well. There's bike paths and everything. It is what you want, I think.
What about the cost of living and going out in Stirling? I know that in terms of Edinburgh, Glasgow, and other cities is a more cost-effective place to be, but from your experience, what can you say? Do you need lots of money to go out here, or can you survive on a budget?
Of course, you can survive on a budget.
Yeah.
I mean, we all come from different countries
Yeah.
with different currencies, so I think it's different for all of us.
Mhm.
It's not, I don't think, extremely expensive. There's some things that are more expensive than others, but it's affordable if you.
Mhm.
I mean, if you're going out every weekend, it can get expensive, of course.
I actually just read an article that Stirling is ranked number 1, the most affordable place to live
Place
in
to
the
live.
UK in 2018. So.
Well,
You need to send that
as well
link to
as
me.
well as well as accommodation.
Okay.
So the most stable.
Yeah, I think like what you said, Tara, I think it's a relative question. It depends on where you're coming from.
Mhm.
And for me, I think you can live on a budget, really. You can live on a budget, and depending, like she said, if you're not going out every weekend, and still have fun, So I think it's affordable.
Mhm.
It's very affordable.
And because Stirling is placed centrally, you can take the train 40 minutes to go to Edinburgh, 40
Glasgow,
minutes to go to
Edinburgh,
Glasgow,
things like that,
yeah, trains north as well if you want.
and have a night out. There's a question about off-campus accommodation and whether there's transport required. Yes, it was mentioned earlier that if you stay outside the campus, you need a bus to come to the university facilities, but you don't need to worry about that. If you choose to stay off campus, there are regular buses. I think it's every 20 minutes
I was
or more than
school
that.
year, yeah.
So
it depends what line you're on, but if you're coming from the city center,
So
you can catch a bus like in the
Yeah,
peak times every 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah, UL is pretty frequent. So, but like most UK cities, you have a hub, so you can always plan your time. You can always plan when to leave your house and things like that. So,
And a bike as well. Like one of my best purchases, I think, was a bike. Here. It's awesome. You go grocery shopping. Sometimes when you're so busy, it's like the only activity I would get all day when we're just studying all day long would be like to ride my bike in town and grab some groceries.
So you don't even, did you buy a bike?
I bought a bike, yeah.
Okay,
But you don't need to.
You don't need to buy a bike. There's always this free bike. You can always rent for every hour. There are stations all around.
It's free.
It's free.
Free for an hour, yeah.
Free for an hour. So you can always rent that and commute yourself all around once you know where the stations are. So it's a pretty smart way to move around the city too.
that's
Although I got a bike.
great tip.
Yeah.
That's great tip to know though, that you can use bikes for free.
I got my own bike before I knew that. So
And I think that's the final question for today about food, because you come from 3 completely different countries, and word has gone out about food in Scotland and the UK. There is a fellow here from Kenya asking what type of food do we find in Scotland. So could you find food from your own countries here? Generally, is it
maybe
okay?
I should be the best person to answer the question. I'll be honest here. The 2 things I miss in Scotland, one of them is food. You might not really find your local food here, but it's an opportunity for you to taste other food. But then you could get tired of them because that's not what you are really used to. But the major thing for me is that the major answer is just there are neighboring cities all around where you have the Black community, you have African shops, you can really shop and get your condiments, your spices, everything you really want to get, And those shops are excellent when it comes to that. You find everything you need there. So, but it requires a little bit of planning as well. So, for example, it's just like 40 minutes to Glasgow, if I'm right. And then you can always get from those shops in Glasgow and plan for maybe 2 months, 3 months. But an advice I would just give to that person coming from Kenya is just that make sure you come with the basic spices you need. Just come with the basic spices you need. Your pepper, your every condiment you need. Just make sure you have them have them in good quantity. Then every other thing you can always come and buy there. Yeah.
Great. Well, I hope it's not that bad, guys.
It's not terrible. No. I think, I just cook a lot anyways here. So the grocery shopping is fine for me.
Okay.
Restaurant-wise in Stirling, there's options, but I don't really go out that much. And Glasgow and Edinburgh have great restaurant options, I think, as well. But it's culturally I think, dependent on where you're coming from and what you're looking for.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just being biased. Answering that person
Yeah.
from Kenya. Really.
Yeah, of course.
So just before we wrap up, there's a question about if you are allowed to work when you have the course part-time. In terms of allowed to be in employment, if you are an overseas student, there are visa requirements for you that you need to work for 20 hours per week.
Maximum.
So you cannot exceed that amount of hours per week. So based on the program you have during the weekend, those 2 weeks, that's quite an intensive block of teaching. Then you need to see whether you can fit into that 2 weeks employment. So it is doable, but you need to make sure that you don't exceed your 20 hours. So it's back to what we were saying earlier, back to time management and just putting down on paper how much hours you can spend on campus at the lectures, self-study, going to the library with assignments and having all this paperwork sorted. And then you can see if you can spare some time to do some part-time work. I don't think you would be able to do full-time, even if you didn't have visa requirement restrictions. If you are interested in doing part-time work, Stirling is quite a vibrant place, lots of shops, lots of bars and restaurants, lots of companies as well, if your skills are needed into those companies. But again, it's up to you to find out after the first 2 modules you've done whether you can afford your time to spend into employment or not. So I hope that answered your question. Any comments on that before we...
A couple of guys that had part-time jobs.
Did they cope well?
Well, I think they do. Callum did very well.
Yeah, I think it's
What's
just
Lauren? I think
Lauren and Clara.
Lauren,
There's people
Clara.
that definitely have jobs, especially now with dissertations, since it's more
Yeah.
self-guided,
Mhm.
self-organized people have jobs now.
Mhm.
I think definitely manageable. I would have personally struggled with the job in the first modules, but you could do it. I mean,
Night shifts, maybe.
yeah, I mean, weekends, it's just up to you because we do have work on the weekends always. There's
You
always
have
something to do. You kind of have every other weekend off if the assignment's due on that Friday, but I mean, that gives you 2 days off out of,
Mhm.
every 12. If you could find a job that would accommodate that and you really needed the money, I think you could squeeze it in, but it would be rough those first 2 modules, I personally think.
I agree.
Well, I think that's all from us, and I'd really like to thank you very, very much for spending your time with us today. I know you're quite busy with your dissertations and your labs and your reports, so thank you very, very much. Hopefully we answered all your questions, and yes, we're looking forward to seeing you in September. So thank you very much for joining us today, and good afternoon from a very sunny and very warm Stirling. So thank you. Bye for now.